seems to be a rise in music-related boys' love anime this year. Sarazanmai, of course, was a musical, while Idol Anime Ensemble Stars looks to be a straight girls' harem. Many of the boys seem more interested in each other. And then there's Given, a story about an indie band composed of a grumpy, disaffected high school boy and his two buddies in university. The younger guy meets another kid in his school who carries around a guitar but doesn't know anything about guitars and would really like to learn how to play. Given tells the story of the younger two as Jitsuka starts to let Mafuyu into his life, eventually letting him join the band, and his older bandmates notice he's changing for the better and may or may not be shipping the two of them. I've never read the manga, but the show is reminiscent of early Key, with its sensible, snarky protagonist whose wall of cynicism gets worn down by an eager, secretly depressed cutie with no common sense. But that's not the only thing Given shares in common with Key. Tiny details that build the setting and characters are very present here, maybe not too noticeable at first, but very good at fleshing the story out. So I thought I'd take a look at some of those details in the first few episodes and how they contribute to the overall show. The most obvious is Mafuyu and the way he moves through the space he occupies. While most of the characters have more standard motion and background characters barely move at all if the show can help it, Mafuyu has a lot of small, subtle movements that the show sometimes draws attention to with close-ups and scenes with him. He'll shuffle his feet a little when he's talking, and while he spends most of his time staring into space, when something interests him, he'll break out of that and immediately light up and move forward. He also holds his guitar like it's a security blanket, or a person, which the opening draws attention to by having him hugged from behind by a faceless boy, probably someone important to his past. All of this, without any words, is developing Mafuyu as more than just a weirdo Moa blob. You look at him and think he's lost and he's scared. The guitar is obviously the key to his past, and the character framing alone shows that as much as the plot so far has. But just as important as the little things in character animation are the details in the setting that establish the various places. The biggest example of this is one of the most often used, the rinky-dink studio where the band practices and records. They actually made a ton of different establishing shots instead of just the one. Check it out. They could have just drawn a generic recording studio, but the artists and animators went out of their way to make it obvious that the band is using the only studio space they can get. The booth is cramped and everything looks aged. You notice the chipped paint, the ghosting smears on the whiteboard, and the wear and tear in the wall padding. They may have actual recording space to begin with, but the viewer gets the feeling that that's only because not too many people in Japan have a garage to practice in. As much as I love Bandori, even the endangered live house they used in Season 1 looked a lot more polished than it needed to be, whereas Given is more true to life for an indie band. You'll also notice by now that the show will sometimes look away from the characters and pan over these small setting details. A lot of the time that actually gets used for symbolism. For instance, when Jitsuka is telling Mafuyu on the train to try and remember his bandmates' names instead of just one standout characteristic each, we see a sign about manners, specifically giving up your seat to old people. Haruhi and Akihiko are obviously not old, but there is an age gap between them and the main pair, and Jitsuka's message is to treat them with respect. The symbolism isn't always beating you over the head like that, though. In the staircase scenes, often there will be a shot up to the sky through the window. This doesn't have words telegraphing what it means, but it seems to happen whenever Jitsuka feels disconnected from life or from Mafuyu and what he's thinking and feeling. Showing the sky with a barrier such as a gate or cage tends to symbolize a character feeling trapped, as was famously used all over the TV opening to Anohana. The anime hasn't told us what caused Jitsuka to be the way he is yet, but this is a pretty substantive clue. And finally, I have to talk about how the show plays with color. There are a lot of cream and tan tones in the school, more vibrant colors outside, but the studio is where it looks interesting. We have dull colors everywhere, but bright green on the curtains and door, and the hardwood is very reflective despite the lack of polish anywhere else. It seems to be going for a lot of things, mainly the conflicted hearts of the band members and how they're trying to make it with what they have, and those obvious shadows on the sides and in the corners always seem to show up when one or more of the guys has something to worry about. In contrast, at the end of episode 2, we see green again when the colors in the staircase change while Jitsuka is transfixed by Mafuyu's singing. It's that same tone of perseverance in life from someone Jitsuka didn't know if he'd ever get through to and still doesn't, and it also scares Jitsuka because he doesn't know what's going on and can't get through his own head that he's got the Doki Dokis. If handshakers put you off of color play and visual shifting, Given might make you believe it can be used for good. It helps that it's used sparingly. We haven't seen too much of Given yet, but the story presented is promising and the visual storytelling absolutely so. Subtext and symbolism are dirty words for some people, especially in same-sex romance stories, because we've been burned by shows that backed out at the last minute, but they're an important part of telling any story. And with the text not shying away, there's no need to worry about what you're reading into the art, the animation, the sound design, and everything else that makes the show. Let me know in the comments whether you're watching Given and what you think of it. This is Secret Identity Studio, and these boys are going to make me cry, aren't they?